The legacy and partnership of Nelson Mandela and Graça Machel, a shared commitment to social justice and humanitarian work in Africa. Nelson Mandela and Graça Machel shared a unique and impactful partnership grounded in mutual respect, compassion, and a commitment to social justice. Their marriage in 1998 brought together two prominent African leaders dedicated to the welfare of their continent and the rights of its people. Nelson Mandela, the anti-apartheid revolutionary and South Africa's first black president, spent 27 years imprisoned for his fight against the racist apartheid regime. Upon his release, he became a global symbol of resilience, forgiveness, and peace, and he led South Africa's transition to a multiracial democracy. Mandela's leadership was not only about ending apartheid but also about building a fairer and more inclusive South African society. 3. Graça Machel, 1998 to 2013. Graça Machel is a respected humanitarian, educator, and advocate for women's and children's rights, known for her marriage to both Nelson Mandela and Mozambican President Samora Machel. Her work has made her one of Africa's most influential voices in social justice, development, and human rights. Early life and education. Full name, Graça Machel. Born, October 17, 1945, in rural Nkandine, Gaza Province, Mozambique. Family background, Graça was born to a farming family of modest means. Her father, who died shortly before she was born, was a Methodist minister who strongly valued education. Education, Graça attended Methodist mission schools and excelled academically, eventually winning a scholarship to the University of Lisbon in Portugal. While studying languages there, she became involved in political activism, joining the Frelimo, Mozambique Liberation Front, movement fighting for Mozambique's independence from Portuguese colonial rule. Role in Mozambique's independence movement. In 1973, Graça left her studies to fully support Mozambique's independence movement, joining Frelimo and training as a freedom fighter. After Mozambique gained independence in 1975, she played a key role in the new government and became Minister of Education and Culture under the leadership of President Samora Machel, whom she would later marry. Marriage to Samora Machel. Graça married Samora Machel in 1975, shortly after Mozambique's independence. Samora, as Mozambique's first president, faced the challenge of rebuilding the country amidst civil conflict and external pressures. Graça took her role seriously and continued to serve as the Minister of Education and Culture, dedicating herself to improving literacy rates, access to education, and promoting girls' education across Mozambique. Her marriage to Samora ended tragically when he died in a mysterious plane crash near the South African border in 1986, an incident widely believed to have involved the apartheid regime. Graça was left a widow with two children, Josina and Malangoni, but remained committed to her work in education and social justice in Mozambique. Work as Minister of Education and Achievements. As Mozambique's Minister of Education and Culture, 1975 to 1989, Graça led significant reforms aimed at increasing literacy and access to education for Mozambicans, especially girls and women. Under her leadership, literacy rates in Mozambique rose considerably. She was particularly focused on gender equality in education, advocating for policies that promoted female literacy and access to schooling. Her efforts were groundbreaking, as they addressed the barriers to education in a war-torn, newly independent country, and her work established her as a respected leader in education and social reform. Transition to international advocacy and human rights. After leaving government service in 1989, Graça continued her work as a global advocate for children's and women's rights. Her work took on a broader international focus, and she became involved in the United Nations and various other organizations. The United Nations Study on the Impact of Armed Conflict on Children, 1994. At the request of the UN, Graça authored a report titled The Impact of Armed Conflict on Children, which became a landmark document drawing global attention to the devastating effects of war on young people. It highlighted the physical, psychological, and social consequences of conflict and led to increased advocacy for the protection of children in war zones. Graça Machel Trust, 2008. Graça founded the Graça Machel Trust, an organization dedicated to promoting women's economic empowerment, children's rights, and good governance in Africa. Through the trust, she worked on initiatives addressing maternal and child health, education, nutrition, and economic empowerment across the continent. The Elders, 2007. Alongside figures such as Desmond Tutu, Jimmy Carter, and Kofi Annan, Graça helped establish the Elders, an organization of global leaders focused on promoting peace, justice, and human rights. She became a central figure in the Elders, advocating for sustainable development, women's rights, and an end to child marriage. Marriage to Nelson Mandela. Graça and Nelson Mandela first met in the early 1990s, and their friendship developed into a deep bond. In 1998, Graça married Nelson Mandela, making her the only woman in modern history to marry two heads of state. Their marriage brought her into the global spotlight as Africa's First Lady, but she remained committed to her humanitarian work, often working alongside Mandela on causes related to peace, education, and children's rights. Their relationship was characterized by mutual respect, shared values, and a commitment to social justice. Later life and continuing activism. After Mandela's passing in 2013, Graça continued her advocacy work with an unwavering dedication. Her initiatives have remained focused on improving the lives of women and children across Africa. Campaign against child marriage. Graça has been a prominent voice against child marriage, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. She has advocated for legal reforms, community education, and support systems to protect young girls from early marriage and help those already affected by it. Focus on nutrition and health. Through her work with the Graça Machel Trust, she has addressed issues related to maternal and child health, aiming to reduce malnutrition and increase access to health care for women and children in marginalized communities. Women's economic empowerment. Graça has been a strong advocate for women's financial independence, promoting access to financial resources and entrepreneurial opportunities for women in Africa. Awards and honors. Graça Machel has received numerous awards and recognitions for her contributions to humanitarian work and social justice, including Nansen Refugee Award, 1995, awarded by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees for her dedication to protecting refugee children. Honorary doctorates. She has been awarded several honorary degrees from universities around the world, recognizing her contributions to education, children's rights, and humanitarian work. International and African awards. She has received numerous African and international awards for her role as a leader in promoting peace, women's rights, and children's welfare. Legacy and impact. Graça Machel's legacy is one of resilience, compassion, and fierce advocacy for human rights. She is seen as a pioneer for women in leadership and a symbol of strength and dedication to justice. Her impact spans across Mozambique, South Africa, and the entire African continent, as she has continuously worked to uplift communities and advocate for those most affected by inequality and conflict. Through her humanitarian work and her status as a leader in the Elders, the Graça Machel Trust, and various other initiatives, she has created lasting change, particularly for women and children in Africa. Today, she remains an influential figure and a role model for activists, policymakers, and leaders worldwide.